I didn't want to make this video. The whole thing seems like a nightmare. Having looked into it now and gone through piles of court documents and testimony, I agree with myself from the past. I really regret doing this. It's such a mess. There's so much to go through. I may be alone in this, but none of it to me feels very certain or anything that we can hang our hat on and say, this is definitely what happened. Then I saw this article in The Cut. Which women do we choose to believe? Amber Heard claims an extremely famous man abused her for years. Why do so many people hate her for it? This article, I think, does a really good job of presenting a fuller picture of their relationship than what we might have seen on Instagram and TikTok. I think we've all seen by now a lot of videos just making fun of Amber, acting like, ha ha ha, how could anyone believe her?
I was walking out of the bedroom, slapped me across the face. I turned to look at him and I said, Johnny, you hit me. You just hit me.
And then came the body language videos.
Body language.
My old nemesis. The first video we made on this channel is about body language analysis. I'll link it above or below. Speaking of the first video on this channel, quick programming note. We've been doing this for a few months now. Welcome to Crooked Timber. I'm still not sure if I can make that line work or not. Welcome to Crooked Timber. Does that work for everybody? Does that, I don't know if I'm selling that. Okay. The channel has mostly come to be about true crime analysis and debunking videos. So if that's something you're interested in, love it if you could subscribe. Can't make eye contact when I ask for things, it's too embarrassing. So right off the top, I'll just say that I think that most body language channels are total charlatans. I don't believe that they have scientific evidence to back up their claims. I have read research that supports the idea that there are certain clusters of behavior that are more commonly associated with deception. But the idea that there's a one-to-one correspondence between telling a lie and a facial expression or gestures that we make, that's just not scientifically supported. Let me just say up top, I get why people think that Amber doesn't seem that believable. There are definitely moments in her testimony where it looks like she's crying, but if you look closely, you don't see any tears. Her affect a lot of the time just doesn't seem very natural.
I wish so much he had said he was joking.
For all the accusations that Amber Heard seems like she's acting, no one seems to have that same energy for Johnny Depp's constant little smirks and little giggles with his lawyer.
You in the video, Mr. Depp, right?
That's correct, sir.
Did I read that right?
You did.
Can you just read for the jury that first text?
You'd like me to read that?
Yes, please.
Sure, Mr. Rottenborn. Is the slippery hooper that I donated my jizz to for a while staying there?
Future is on display. Best of luck.
Best if luck.
Thank you for the correction. Best if luck.
You're welcome.
What is that about? I think it comes off as really arrogant. A lot of people seem to think that that's proof of his righteousness. To me, it comes off as just being cocky and overconfident. And if it were me and I were being accused of domestic assault, I maybe wouldn't find it so fucking funny. Having reviewed their civil cases and their divorce proceedings, I'm in the camp where I think that these are two people who both need help. That said, I don't think either of them comes out smelling like a rose in either of these lawsuits. My main point with this video is that body language analysis and behavior analysis and the absolute certainty that people have to weigh in on these extremely personal disputes, I think is unfounded and tacky and gross. I want to go over some of the pieces of evidence that I think are the most relevant for this discussion. In their various civil trials, they've both entered in as evidence photographs of themselves with bruised faces. 2015 UK civil trial that ruled that the Sun could indeed refer to Johnny Depp as a wife beater because the tabloid was able to present copious evidence that he had indeed assaulted his wife. The trial featured evidence including pictures of a clump of hair that Amber Heard said that Johnny Depp pulled out of her scalp. There was also a photograph of a hole in her hair where the hair had been yanked from. I know that Depp's UK protection officer testified to the fact that he had seen scratches and bruises on the actor's face. I've also heard that Amber Heard's makeup artist is going to testify to the fact that she did in fact help Amber cover up bruises with makeup. We haven't heard her testimony as of yet. Vanessa Paradis, Johnny Depp's long-term partner, and Winona Ryder, his former fiancée, have both testified to the fact that Johnny Depp never assaulted either of them during the course of their relationship. Johnny Depp also has an ex-girlfriend who will testify to the fact that he threw a wine bottle in her direction on one occasion. Amber Heard was arrested in 2009 following a domestic assault allegation that she had grabbed her then-girlfriend, Taysa Van Ree, and punched her in the arm. Those charges were later dropped, and in 2016, Van Ree said it was all overblown. But at the same time, I think it's definitely pertinent to bring up. According to an article in The Hollywood Reporter, a location manager from the set of City of Lies has accused Johnny Depp of punching him twice. And I believe that lawsuit is still ongoing. I think the most interesting pieces of evidence are the communications that Johnny Depp and Amber Heard have had between themselves. I heard a recording where Johnny Depp is saying to Amber Heard, when we're in these big fights, we need to go to separate rooms so we don't kill each other. And she seems to kind of agree, or at least she doesn't disagree with his characterization that they might kill each other. So that seems to go toward both of them playing a role in the violent nature of their relationship. But in some of these recordings where Johnny Depp sounds pretty calm and reasonable and Amber Heard is definitely more upset, her testimony has always been that a lot of the time Johnny Depp was a good husband and a reasonable person. It was when he was under the influence of 8 ecstasy pills when the finger thing happened that he would be difficult to deal with, as one might imagine. He's also admitted himself to being difficult when he takes drugs and drinks alcohol. And when I say difficult, I mean impossible to deal with. Not someone you should be in the same room with. And that's backed up by messages he sent to his friends where he refers to himself as a monster when he's under the influence of alcohol and drugs. Also a contrite text message that he sent to Amber where he says, "Once again, I find myself in a place of shame and regret. Of course I am sorry. I really don't know why or what happened." Which is something that people always say when they know they've done something really shitty. Speculation. Move to strike. But I will never do it again. I want to get better for you and for me. I must. My illness somehow crept up and grabbed me. I can't live like that again, and I know you can't either. Then there are the messages that Johnny Depp sent to his friends after a fight with Amber Heard, such as this one. "I cannot wait to have this waste of a cum guzzler out of my life." To another actor, he wrote, "Let's drown her before we burn her. I will fuck her burnt corpse afterwards to make sure she's dead."
Oh my God.
And I don't know, and you may say like, well, haven't we all been angry and said things we don't mean? Yeah, we have, and I've never said anything about f***ing a burned corpse. You can't say that he had nothing to do with this violent relationship. I don't think that that is supported by the evidence. I'll link the article to the cut in The Hollywood Reporter below. You can have a look for yourself. There's this thing that happens when people only look to one side of the evidence, or they're only being fed one side of the evidence by the algorithm. Suddenly everyone becomes an expert. Suddenly everyone can look at Amber Heard on the stand and say, look at this, that's something a liar would do. Even people who have never before claimed to have any credibility or any training as far as body language or behavior analysis, just are still ready to just jump in the fray. I'm getting worked up. Let's have a look at a few now.
Could you tell the jury what this is?
Do you see the way that she, like, opening up her shoulder, she's like adjusting and like prepping herself to give this soliloquy, if you will, to the jury. This is something that I did not notice Johnny do. Again, when we're talking about strategies in trial, witnesses will be prepped on stuff about when to look at the jury and when not to. It doesn't mean they're following that advice all the time, and motions will also be natural and inherent, but she very intentionally is like opening herself up, and now I'm about to deliver my message to you, which I feel like it takes away a little bit of authenticity in that moment, because this does not feel natural to me.
This is such a tiny movement that she's read so much into, and then she goes like this, and she's about to address the jury, and I think that that makes her less credible. Like, do you hear yourself? That makes no sense, and it's based on nothing.
Just yes. Go.
And see how she scans after she gives her answers? She scans. She does this a lot. She scans the jury, and it's almost like hoping to make eye contact with somebody so that you can connect with them, because if you can connect with the jury, then they're going to believe your side. And she does this all the time. Scans them. Did you believe me? Are you with me? Are you engaged in what I'm saying?
She does it all the time.
With me?
Looking at people. She does it all the time. She's always looking for people to look at. Your Honor, I rest my case. What?
Scanning, scanning, scanning. Look at all that eye movements.
I can't take her anymore. We have to move on to the next person. This next body language expert we're going to take a look at is Dr. Louise Maller. This is from an appearance on 7 News in Australia. Buckle your ears up. This is about to be Australian.
Conclusion, I have to say that every single thing that Amber Heard does to me lacks credibility.
First of all, this
Every single thing
the
she
way she ties
does.
her shoes is bullshit.
And there are some incongruences, like when she puts the hanky up, one would normally blow one's nose because there's moisture, but she actually puts the hanky up and breathes in. And some people have said she's breathing in a substance or something. I don't know about that, but that would be a very odd thing to do.
So she used a hanky the wrong way. She, instead of blowing her nose, she sniffed with a tissue near her nose. Not credible. Not a credible witness. Dr. Louise Mallon is a tissue expert. In addition to body language. Let's move on. I'm sort of like getting to something I think is really stupid and then just saying like, all right, next. Who's on trial, Amber or her tissue? So next we're going to take a look at Derek Van Schaik's video on Amber Heard. He is one of the more ridiculous body language analysis channels on YouTube. And one of the ones, we look into him more in our previous video on body language, but one of the people who has the thinnest credentials, I want to say, as far as body language research or analysis.
Are his credentials like he went to Walmart one time or something?
His credentials are he has a real estate license, I think.
Right.
We're going to break down Amber Heard's body language during her intense deposition, along with the recorded evidence, to finally reveal whether these accusations against Johnny Depp are true or false.
Serious stuff. He's going to decide if they're true or false, so this is huge.
Ow! Let's get started.
8/22, 2016. Did you ever commit an act of domestic violence against Johnny Depp?
First, Depp's lawyer is asking that question. Did you notice Amber was whipping her head and her eyes all around the room? Liars will sometimes do that to feel like they're escaping in a fight or flight reaction, since it's a stressful situation and question where they know they're going to be lying. Remember, lying is extremely stressful, partly because they know it's wrong, there are consequences, and it's dangerous because they could be caught in the lie. People don't normally lie about random things in their life. Instead, they'll lie about very big, specific things, which causes them to act stressed in that instance.
Calls for legal conclusion.
Everything that Derek just said is not really supported by evidence. The whole idea that telling a lie is stressful and you therefore have manifestations in your body that show that you're lying or that you're under stress. That's what polygraphs are based on, that whole idea, and polygraphs have been so thoroughly debunked. They're not admissible in court because the science behind them just isn't proven. There are plenty of murderers who are guilty who have passed polygraphs tests, so Let's just put that to bed.
Also notice her hands are likely together underneath the table, possibly being massaged in self-comfort. She says her no quietly.
No.
Which is sometimes very typical of a liar.
He loves to speculate about what people are doing with their body parts off camera. He did the same thing with the Chris Watts video. If you can't see what's going on, don't conclude based on things that aren't in frame. It makes you look crazy. These guys, these are the real meat and potatoes of suspect behavior analysis on YouTube. At least a couple of these guys I've looked into, and they seem to have credentials that would support their claims of expertise. Greg Hartley says on his website that he's a former U.S. Army interrogator. Scott Rouse also states on his website that he's a professionally trained interrogator. They each sell their body language analysis programs. So that's something to keep in mind. So let's dive in.
This is loaded with everything we need to see from a body language perspective that shows the emotions are congruent with her story, with what she's talking about. Everything looks as it should. But they're so on point, they seem odd.
So just to make sure I'm following along here, according to your expertise, Scott, everything that she's saying does match up with her body language, but it's too good. And you're just that finely attuned in your observations that you can tell when something is natural because it is natural versus when something is staged and acted out. It's just...
That's what gives you that odd little feeling where you go, why do I feel like or know like something's not right here? What's giving me that feeling on this?
Hey audience, do you have any preconceived assumptions about Amber Heard's guilt? Let me reinforce those for you. Let me just tell you what you want to hear, because I want more likes on this video. The behavior panel also gave a lot of lip service to the idea that we're not for Johnny, we're not for Amber, we're just going in cold. That idea becomes less and less believable as this video goes on.
Remember, we talked about a baseline about a year and a half ago. We covered her for a 2016 deposition.
So he brought up a baseline, and that's something that comes up a lot in behavior analysis texts. And basically the idea is that you have to know what someone is like on a regular basis before you can look at patterns of behavior that might stick out as odd or aberrant for them. We're watching a series of testimony in a trial. How could you possibly have a baseline for someone you've never met? The idea of a baseline makes sense for police interrogators, right? Because they do interviews, one-on-one interviews with suspects that go on for hours and hours. I think it's reasonable for them to say, okay, I have a baseline. I've asked him a lot of boring questions about his life. Now I'm going to ask him more stressful questions now that I have an idea of how this person interacts when they're calm. Again, that's an interrogation tactic. It's not something that's admissible as evidence in court. Bringing up these buzzwords for behavior analysis, but he doesn't seem to really understand what they mean. Okay, this next part is where I really start to lose it.
I don't remember the exact sequence of things. I wish I did. I have a lot of flashes. It gets a little bit more confusing from my ability to recall everything in a linear way.
Things are as they should be at this point. Everything looks pretty much the way it should be. Everything is congruent. Her illustrators are on point. Everything energy-wise is where it should be, and everything is working together. Everything, she's got this one going very well. Everything looks good. So let's talk about PTSD just for a second. I'm not an expert on it at all, but I know about it. I've read about it. I think I have a basic understanding of it. And I think she's trying to make it sound like she has PTSD, because what she's done is she's been told to, or she's read about it and said, here's what PTSD is, and we're going to mix this in here to make it sound like this guy's giving you that from the way he's acting towards you. She can't remember things in a linear way. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. Look at this haircut and this bad mustache and these glasses. I'm smart enough to know when somebody has heard something and they're parroting it.
How How could you know that? You're saying you don't know, you're not an expert in PTSD, you've read about it, and based on that Wikipedia entry you read about PTSD, you've looked at a video of Amber Heard, a woman you've never met, and you've concluded, based on her body language, based on the way she moves her eyes and wiggles her fingers, that she has been told what PTSD looks like, and she's recreating it for the benefit of a jury.
One of the first strategies in an interview or an interrogation is get a good lie. You let this person tell their whole story, and then you go back and ask for more detail. You know who make good detectives? Empaths. If you find yourself not believing some of her testimony...
It's brought up empaths. I already hate him.
We talked about in another video about accessing memories and your body doing the motion. She accesses grabbing. If you're describing somebody grabbing your arm, they grabbed your arm.
In my apartment in Orange, he would grab me by the hair, or he'd grab me by the arm, face.
Who's grabbing who by the hair? If you're describing how you got grabbed by the hair, you didn't get grabbed by the hair. You got grabbed by the hair.
It's such a wonderful specificity about how someone else would mime their recollections. This TikToker's handle is purepower34. He says in his profile that he's a former domestic violence investigator. He's not necessarily saying he's a professional behavior analysis. And yet, he says things that make it sound as though he does know how people recall things and how that translates into their body language versus how that works when someone's being deceptive. These credentials that these people supposedly have are often spurious, and the claims that they make, they often don't try to back up, or they simply reference their own experience as being the basis for their conclusion. And I just don't think that's enough. I just don't think that that's enough to shit on someone who says that they were in an abusive relationship. I don't doubt that investigators may find certain aspects of behavior analysis helpful to them when they're in an interrogation setting. There's a reason why body language is never Exhibit A in a trial. We never hear, Your Honor, the defendant's blink rate is suspiciously slow. I rest my case. While I agree that there is ample evidence to suggest that in multiple instances, Amber Heard was the aggressor in their fights, I also think that there's just as much to suggest that he was also aggressive, he was also violent. Again, I think that these are both people who need help. You know what isn't helpful? Rank speculation. If there is even a tiny chance that Amber Heard is the victim of domestic dispute, do you really want to go there? Do you really want to make fun of someone in that situation? I don't. Join me, won't you, on the side of the internet that says we have to live with uncertainty.
Is like, I've seen both of them act on screen, and it's kind of the same. It's just a different show. It's boring to watch.
Yeah, I don't want to watch movies that either of them are in, and I don't want to watch their court trial. I want to cast them in a movie called Two People Relax Far Away from Each Other. Coming soon to a theater near you, hopefully.